So, Chapter 97 basically gave us Grand Cross characters, specifically one that is touted to be Galen's nephew in the main story of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And so, this got me thinking, what other Grand Cross characters could we potentially see in the main series, and if Grand Cross events could end up being canon. And so I got two specific story events that are both ongoing in Grand Cross, and I have not delved too deep into them, due to the fact that when I do, I want to make full videos on those as well. But for now, I'm just going to give my brief ideas on how these things can be introduced into Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Before I get into the video, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell. It helps the channel out, it shows you guys like this Four Knights and 7 Deadly Sins content on the channel, and it gives me more motivation to keep making these miscellaneous videos that I know you guys will like. Now let's hit that intro and get right into the video. So, my one big obvious thing that I want to put into this video is that I want the Ragnarok storyline that is an original storyline made specifically for Grand Cross. We even got a fully animated trailer like 2 years ago, I believe, and it was animated amazingly, to be part of the Four Knights canon. Now, for all we know, we could end up getting, instead of Four Knights movies, 7 Deadly Sins non-canon movies to adapt the Ragnarok story arc. And this isn't in fact finished yet, but with how Ragnarok is set up in the game, there is a strong possibility that we could make it canon. So here's my general idea. Obviously the Four Knights are going to be the main focus of this story arc, or even just a full-on movie or set of movies. Since the Grudge Veteran movie was split into 2 parts, we could do either or. This storyline in Ragnarok starts basically with Meliodas finding a book and opening it, then all of a sudden him and the Sins and the Warhead Tavern are transported to this alternate world where you have all these warriors based off of Nordic legends. And I have to be honest, it's a really cool concept to basically introduce Nordic gods and their mythos to any series. Hell, I do plan to incorporate it in some way, shape, or form into my own original story when I do eventually get into writing the full story. And I just find the whole thing fascinating. And this actually makes it easy for Four Knights to make this into an either non-canon set of movies, where instead of the Sins dealing with this problem, it'd be the Four Knights, as well as the rest of the cast, with Donnie, An, Nazien, Isolde, Chion, and all these characters in this one singular story arc. Meeting all these different characters, and from what I've seen from the polls, they all look really cool and amazing. They all basically need like their own shorts, or like short 5-minute videos for each of them, but one of the core story beats has to either do with Freya, as she's being set up to be the villain, and in that story arc there's also a rival-ish antagonist called Sigurd after Meliodas, since he has the dragon mark, and he views him as this ancient dragon that was revived that he must defeat with his powerful magical sword. Now, instead of Meliodas, we could literally just replace that with Percival, because he has the Ouroboros brooch on his cape, and he also has the dragon handle. So a similar misunderstanding to lead to that conflict with Percival instead of Meliodas can actually be the case. And thus we could have the different characters be placed in situations where the Sins wouldn't actually be. So this actually could work. Again, Ragnarok is still ongoing, there's still a lot of important story beats that I'm not really getting into. They're just a baseline general discussion of what they could try with it. But this is only if they decide to make it a set of movies. What they could also do is make this into a canon story arc for the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. We saw Galen's nephew in Chapter 97, and that was a side event in Grand Cross that dealt with Gila and Hauser fighting a potential threat from Bartra's vision, which ended up being canon. So, for all we know, Ragnarok could just be readapted into a more canonical storyline. And what we could do with that is we do have Arthur creating his own pocket dimension with Chaos. So it's very possible that with Chaos, fabric of space-time could actually have some cracks in it, leading into a potential arc where the Four Knights and crew, as they are traveling, get plunged into the world of Ragnarok so that they could have that whole storyline adapted with them. That's another way to go about this. You can still have the misunderstanding, the conflict with Freya and all the other characters like the Valkyries, and even some of the other warriors. It just seems like a fun idea that I feel like it would be a waste not to do so, as it kind of feels like it's easy enough to pull off. Not to mention, it'd be really fun to see these characters deal with all these powerful characters that are based off of Nordic legends. I just find it really fun and interesting. Not to mention, you could also just something really quick and just take all these different boss demons and turn them into like brainwashed chaos servants like we've seen in the main story. So we could also do that. Now then, I think I should probably get to the topic of this video's thumbnail. I put members of the 7 catastrophes in there, and I honestly think we could introduce them into the main story. Yes, there's also the possibility we could just put them in like the 16-year blank between 7 Deadly Sins and 4 Nights of the Apocalypse, during that transition period with the 4 Knights growing up and Arthur slowly descending into madness. Because the 7 catastrophes' main beef is primarily with the 7 Deadly Sins, primarily Lilia and her storyline. Now again, this is its own video, and this is just a general discussion of what we could do with these 7 catastrophes, and like I mentioned earlier, Ragnarok. This could be its own set of movies if we really want to, but I think the 7 catastrophes could fit very well in 4 Nights of the Apocalypse. And this could be like a whole Sins of the Father type thing, where Lilia, after escaping the Sins, and after having her plans thwarted by the Sins years ago, she eventually comes up with a way to access different dimensions through magic, and creates the 7 catastrophes by pulling people from other worlds, so that she can succeed in her revenge. Now, is this an excuse so I could see Roxy on the manga page in many different forms? Possibly. I like Roxy. I think she's hot. Do not judge me. Anyway, moving on. Moving on, I do think that we could actually have Lilia want to get to the Sins through their kids. Obviously, the only Sins that have kids are Meliodas, Bon, and King and Elaine. We could kind of push Gawain because there's still the possibility that she's a homunculus clone mixture of Merlin and Escanor, so that falls in too. Only exception would be, well, Percival. So either way, it still kind of works, and it'd be really cool if Lilia does something to kind of put the Sins out of commission or keep them busy, and it comes down to the 4 Knights to take on this threat of the 7 catastrophes. Considering it's the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse, I honestly do think that characters like Donnie, Nazienz, Ani, Isolde, and Xion could actually grow to help them, as well as King in the End's daughter. Now, this is a video in and of itself, but I just want to say this right here. The 7 Deadly Sins Origin online game actually revealed that King in the End do legitimately have a daughter, and you can see her through the gameplay, and honestly, she looks really cool. I'm planning to make a short or even a video within the next week or 2 on it. We might get some more information for all I know. All I know is that I hope we see her in the story soon, because it stated that King in the End have more than 1 kid. But literally, you can just pair these different characters off to fight different members of the catastrophes in their own story arc, and this could coincide with Arthur. Maybe Arthur will actually team up with the catastrophes, give them chaos powers, and give them a chance to fight the Sins, being a way for him to indirectly take care of his biggest obstacle. It could actually work. He basically treats the catastrophes like hired mercenaries in a sense, or a new group of elite guards. That could be something really interesting, and Lilia could end up having similar views to, well, Arthur. Though one of the catastrophes is kind of like a war beast, a beast man, so it could complicate things, but maybe Arthur will make an exception. We have no clue, but we'll go off that assumption, or maybe Lilia will go off that assumption and Arthur could betray them at the end of the day, or just brainwash them, since he's kind of prone to doing that in the recent 2 arcs with anyone that's not human, so they could work with him. Either way, the catastrophe story arc I think is the most likely to be adapted into the main story as an actual arc, because it does fit. You can do a Sins of the Father type thing, or Sins of the Parent type thing, where the kids of the 7 Deadly Sins have to fight against previous enemies, similar to what we got with Galen and Malaska, revived with chaos powers. I know that would seem kind of repetitive, but the difference would be the catastrophes would not be brainwashed. And we could also get another group of characters, give them their own dynamics, because in the game, from what I've seen, these 7 catastrophe members do have their own bonds, their own kind of gimmicks, And it'd be nice to have a whole arc, or even multiple arcs, exploring that. But yeah, that's just my basic ideas for where this whole Grand Cross canonical stuff could end up going. We just see random monsters and boss creatures be turned into actual opponents for the Four Knights to face, as guard beasts or whatever for Arthur or whatever plans he has. We can get movies for Ragnarok or the catastrophes, or even make them canon in some weird shape or form. Again, I think the catastrophes feel like the most likely one to be canonized in Four Knights of the Apocalypse. I think it makes the most sense. Ragnarok could just be its own set of movies. If Four Knights gets really well animated movies, I would actually like it to be Ragnarok, because it won't be canon, but it'll show what the Four Knights are capable of, and I honestly think it could do well. I honestly think Four Knights could actually surpass Seven Deadly Sins in a way, and what better way to do so than have their own titled movie that not only just adapts the mobile game, but just brings everything to life and shows new audiences what this new cast of characters could do. But those are just my general thoughts on Grand Cross and how it could be implemented into the main story of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. There's still other different events. Hell, you could do anime crossovers if you really wanted to do that, with ReZero reincarnated as a slime. Or even Attack on Titan. That one actually seems like the most ridiculous. But there's always the possibility of doing a crossover specials. If Grand Cross has done it, it's possible you could do something like that just for the shits and giggles. But yeah, Ragnarok and the Seven Catastrophes, I would love to see either or both integrated into Four Knights as either a trilogy of movies or its own separate arc within Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Are there anything else that you'd like to see from Grand Cross be implemented into the main story of Four Knights of the Apocalypse? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you agree with what I thought of for Ragnarok and the Seven Catastrophes. And if you want to see me do Grand Cross videos on Ragnarok, the Catastrophes, or just other stuff in general, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for updates on more videos. I want to do more videos similar to this, just me talking with different topics, and see how you guys feel about. But with all that said and done, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have an awesome day.